Our journey begins in the mid-15th century, a tumultuous time in England marked by the War of the Roses. This was no ordinary war. This was a series of civil wars that swept across England for over 3 decades, from 1455 to 1487. The nation was split, brother against brother, cousin against cousin, as 2 great houses sought to claim the throne. The House of Lancaster, symbolized by a resplendent red rose, held the throne. King Henry VI, a man more suited to a monastery than a battlefield, led them. At his side, the formidable Queen Margaret of Anjou, a woman of keen intellect and fierce determination. On the other side, the proud House of York, their emblem a pristine white rose. They were led by Richard, Duke of York, a man of ambition and political cunning. He was not alone in his quest for power. Among his key allies were 2 of the most powerful nobles of the time, Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, and Richard Neville, Earl of Salisbury. Known for their military prowess and political influence, these men were a force to be reckoned with. The tension between these 2 houses came to a head in the quaint town of St Albans on May 22, 1455. The First Battle of St Albans, as it would come to be known, was the first major battle of this brutal war. The stakes were high. Victory would secure power and influence. Defeat could mean death, or worse, irrelevance. As dawn broke, the narrow streets of St Albans were quiet. The townsfolk, aware of the approaching armies, had locked their doors and shuttered their windows. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence only broken by the distant marching of soldiers and the neighing of horses. Now imagine the scene. 2 mighty armies, one led by the king himself, the other by a determined duke, ready to clash in the narrow streets of St Albans. The stage was set for a battle that would change the course of English history. The morning of May 22nd, 1455, dawned bright and clear. The stage was set for the first major battle of the War of the Roses. The Yorkists, under the command of Richard, Duke of York, had a strategy up their sleeves. They had chosen their battleground carefully, the narrow, winding streets of St Albans. This was a place where large numbers counted for little, and individual bravery became the currency of the day. The Lancastrian forces, led by King Henry VI and his queen, Margaret of Anjou, were lured into this urban labyrinth, their superior numbers effectively neutralized by the constricted battleground. The battle commenced with a deafening roar as the 2 forces collided. The clash of steel against steel, the battle cries of the soldiers, and the thundering hooves of war horses filled the air, creating a symphony of war. It was a fierce and frantic fight, with the Lancastrians and Yorkists both fighting with a ferocity driven by decades of political tension and personal vendettas. The Lancastrians, despite their numbers, found themselves at a disadvantage. The tight confines of St Albans' streets did not allow them to maximize their numerical superiority. Instead, they found themselves being gradually pushed back by the Yorkist forces, who were led with a cunning strategy by the Duke of York. The Yorkists, on the other hand, had the upper hand, thanks to their strategic positioning and the support of powerful nobles. Among their key allies were Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, and Richard Neville, Earl of Salisbury. Their combined forces and strategic expertise allowed the Yorkists to press their advantage, gradually pushing back the Lancastrians. The battle continued throughout the day, the narrow streets of St Albans becoming a battlefield of attrition. The Lancastrians fought valiantly, but the Yorkists were relentless. The tide of battle began to turn in favor of the Yorkists as the day wore on. As the sun began to set, a grim picture emerged. The streets of St Albans were littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers, a testament to the ferocious battle that had taken place. Despite the Lancastrians' bravery and superior numbers, they were gradually pushed back and forced to retreat. By the end of the day, the streets of St Albans were awash with the blood of the fallen, and the Yorkists had seized the day. The first major battle of the War of the Roses had ended, but it was only the beginning of a long and bloody conflict that would change the course of English history forever. The Battle of St Albans was over, but its impact was far from forgotten. As the dust settled and the cries of battle faded away, the cost of this violent clash became abundantly clear. The Lancastrian forces had been dealt a devastating blow, with numerous nobles either slain on the battlefield or captured. The once formidable army was left in tatters, a shadow of its former self. Among the captured was none other than King Henry VI himself, a significant victory for the House of York. This marked a turning point in the power dynamics of England. With the king in their possession, the Yorkists held a considerable advantage. The Duke of York, Richard and his allies, the Earl of Warwick and the Earl of Salisbury, emerged as the new power brokers of the realm. Their victory at St. Albans had granted them control over the monarchy, a position they would not relinquish easily. Yet this battle was more than just a struggle for power. It was a harbinger of the violence and bloodshed that was to come. The First Battle of St. Albans marked the beginning of a long and savage war that would engulf England for the next 3 decades. The War of the Roses, as it came to be known, was not merely a war of nobles. It was a war that pitted brother against brother and friend against friend, tearing apart the very fabric of society. In the aftermath of the battle, the streets of St. Albans were littered with the fallen, a grim testament to the brutality of war. Yet amid the chaos and destruction, the seeds of a new era were sown, an era marked by shifting alliances, political intrigue, and relentless warfare. The First Battle of St. Albans was more than just a military engagement. It was the spark that ignited the War of the Roses, a conflict that would shape the course of English history. The First Battle of St. Albans, while not the largest or bloodiest battle of the War of the Roses, was a turning point in English history. With the first clash of swords and the first drops of blood spilled, the Battle of St. Albans set into motion a chain of events that would change England irreversibly. The battle was far from just a military confrontation. It was a manifestation of the deep-rooted divisions and rivalries that existed within the English nobility, marking the beginning of the violent struggle between the houses of York and Lancaster. The tranquility of a sunny day in May 1455 was shattered by the clash of steel as Richard, Duke of York, and his Yorkist forces marched against King Henry VI and his Lancastrian army. The stakes were nothing less than the control of the English throne and the future of the kingdom itself. Arguably, the most significant outcome of the Battle of St. Albans was the capture of King Henry VI by the Yorkists. This event sent shockwaves throughout the realm and shook the Lancastrian hold on the English throne. It was an unprecedented event. Never before in English history had a reigning monarch been captured in battle and held prisoner by his own subjects. This act was a clear and bold statement. The Yorkists were here to challenge the status quo. The capture of the king not only boosted the morale of the Yorkists, but also served as a severe blow to the Lancastrians. It weakened their grip on power and emboldened their enemies. The Yorkists, having tasted victory and sensing the vulnerability of the Lancastrians, were spurred on to continue their fight for the throne. But the significance of the Battle of St. Albans extends beyond the immediate political and military consequences. It set the stage for the subsequent battles of the War of the Roses. It was the spark that ignited a war that would rage on for over 30 years, tearing the kingdom apart. It marked the beginning of a period of instability and conflict, characterized by shifting alliances, betrayals, and power struggles. The Battle of St. Albans was a grim reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of division within a kingdom. It served as a lesson for future generations about the dangers of internal strife and the importance of unity. The First Battle of St. Albans may not have been the largest or bloodiest, but its significance lies in the profound impact it had on the course of English history. It marked a turning point, a moment when the peaceful facade of the kingdom was shattered, giving way to a period of turmoil and conflict. Thus, the First Battle of St. Albans, fought on a sunny day in May 1455, marked the beginning of a war that would last for over 30 years, forever changing the landscape of England.